What's up, everyone? Welcome to the DFSArmy Bold Calls Fantasy Football Podcast. My name is Kevin Allen. I am your host. I've got Long Sez here, the season-long fantasy football GOAT. What's up, Sez?
That's high praise. That's high praise. The GOAT is the greatest of all time. If I'm your GOAT, then I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Now, what happened to the goat beard that you used to sport? I don't know what's going on. You fucking locked it home.
Yeah,
and
no.
you start shaving. So everybody else locked it home. They don't shave. You lock it home. You start shaving your face. What the hell's happening over here?
Yeah, what happens is every about 2 weeks or so, I got to trim it down, and then in about 4 or 5 days, I get the Don Johnson scruff going again. It looks, it's to my liking. It's when you have a face like this, you have to pull out all the tricks in order to look even semi-respectable. But yeah, that's why I wanted to get into radio, and doing video has always been a challenge for me.
It is clearly so. Now, we've got a really fun topic. We're talking best ball, fantasy football. We've been talking it all off season. Best ball is happening now. What? You want to scratch your itch? There's best ball leagues. You can play. You can start making drafting teams. I love drafting. I'll draft all day. I'll draft all summer long. I'll start drafting now. We haven't even had the NFL draft, and I'm fucking drafting.
Well, this is a very specific time, with everything that's going on with, sheltering in place or quarantining, what everyone's calling it nowadays. But people are looking to draft right now. And I think there's, people are at least holding optimism that there's going to be a football season that's going to start on time. I think, everyone right now is in that mind frame, and they're looking for something to do. So best ball drafts or something like that, they're fun. They're fun to do. They're a low point of entry. And I think that's why there's more best ball drafts happening now than there has been in any point in time.
Yeah. And you get to scratch that itch. Now, you did a lot of leagues last season pretty early where we were entering them. And the idea being, there is some edge if you're well-researched well into the offseason, just in looking even at the NFL draft and some players that might come out and where they should be drafted. And then also, just being sharper than the field. Like we could look back to last season when we were on or off certain players in a lot of our pods that it took a while. The field eventually caught up to it. But for early parts, like last year, I mean, the most glaring one for me in my mind was Tyreek Hill, who I felt pretty confident was going to play, but you can get him like the 9th or 10th round. Now, that didn't work out to make my teams great because he was hurt all year.
But it was the right call. What happens is, you've said this about investing as well. It's like heroes run into burning buildings. They don't run out of them. And when, like Tyreek Hill last year, the minute there was some headlines, people ran away from him. They scratched him off their draft list. And when you dug a little deeper, you realized that there was probably not a great chance he was going to be suspended. And that was a buying opportunity. And the price from Tyreek Hill last year went from the 10th round to the 8th round to the 7th round to the 3rd round to no value, to the first. Now,
and best ball, from what I understand, and this takes us into our category. Best ball, from my understanding, cashed in 14 out of 19 leagues last season. So I got the props, right? From my understanding, it's all about value. It's never going to be necessarily about who you picked in the first 3 rounds. Everybody picks somebody pretty good in the first 3 rounds, and we all are hoping that they don't get hurt. That's fine. But it's all about finding value late. And that takes us into the topic of today's podcast, which is buy low players or avoid low players. Because there's 2 categories of player here. We all have had some disappointments. There are fantasy football assets that were disappointing last year. I'm sure you can agree. We had a lot of disappointments. We always do. So now we come back. You have a bad taste in your mouth. Think about David Johnson. I'm going to throw the first name out there. Goes in the first round. Pick number 6 in the first round. RB6 last year. We dropped him a little bit. RB8. I don't have any shares of him because it was just slightly below what the market felt for David Johnson last year. So I didn't wind up with any shares. But if you did, you probably lost your league. And now even the name David Johnson gives you the heebie-jeebies.
Well, you know what's funny is that
Heebie-jeebies.
you know what it is? It's David Johnson's has been uniquely bad. So he hasn't just been bad over the last 3-4 seasons. He's been uniquely bad. And let me explain. There's been no worse investment in fantasy football than David Johnson over the last 3 years because, and this is why, we've all drafted players that bust or get injured. Not only was he a first-round pick, like a top 5 pick, a top 2 pick in the last 3 rounds, but when he got hurt, you couldn't even cut him. The 1 year it was his wrist. You thought he was going to come back. You kept him on your roster, just rotting away there, clogging it up. The next year he came back. He wasn't as good, gets hurt. Disappointed. Last year, more disappointment, and he still went in the first round. I mean,
excuses though. Let's talk about the excuse. Year 2, because we're not stupid. The situation keeps changing. Year 2, different coaching. No Bruce Arians. Oh, they didn't know how to utilize him properly. All right, year 3, new coach. You know what I'm saying? Like there's been an excuse, so you keep going back to the well.
Yeah. No, and it's because, you know what it was? And it's a perfect lead into what we're talking about is that if a player has flashed significant upside in spurts, not just a game here, a game there, we hook back on to that. We say, okay, we've seen it. It's been proved. It's not, as you always like to say, it's not projecting upside.
Not
it's
speculating.
not speculating. Right. That's what you always say. This is like been displayed, proven upside. And nobody's going to forget that David Johnson won people fantasy leagues he was a 1,000-yard rusher, 1,000-yard catcher with 80 catches. And, you know, as it turns out, he's just an oversized pass catcher. He's not a between the tackles runner as well. It just hasn't worked out. And everyone's like, well, the offensive line for the Cardinals was bad last year. That's why David Johnson couldn't get going. What happened when our guy, Kenyon Drake, got in there? He started busting off big runs. So obviously it wasn't the line, it was David Johnson. So now he was traded egregiously for DeAndre Hopkins. So he's on Houston. Now, before we form our opinion on David Johnson, we do have to acknowledge a few facts, and then you can discard them if you want. Last year, nobody wanted Carlos Hyde, and he did get 1,000 yards for the Houston Texans. And the Houston Texans did trade away their first-round pick and then their pick in 221 as well for Laramie Tunsil, who is considered one of the best tackles in the game. So he is going to be there. All right. So forget the dynasty aspect of Bill O'Brien. They have a first-round offensive tackle and David Johnson, who is he at least as good as Carlos Hyde? If so, he should be good for 1,000 yards, right, Keek?
We're gonna have to see, man. Listen, the issue is buy low. We're talking about buy low candidates. How low does he go?
In best ball, he's going in the 5th round now, the end of the 5th round. But in regular drafts where the running backs won't get pushed up as much, he'll probably settle in as like a mid-6th round pick.
Okay, so there's a couple of things at play here.
That's buy low, but that's the definition of buy low.
That's fine, right? But there's a couple of things at play here. Number one, it's important to note that the Texans just have not produced fantasy points from the running back position in years, and it goes back many years, and it's a team that should produce from the running back position but doesn't, which is even more disturbing. If you had Lamar Miller any of the last few seasons, you know my nickname for him was Lamar Mehler because he's just meh. And he was the starter on a high-powered offense that had a defensive focus. All of the stars are aligned on Houston for the running back position, and yet it doesn't work out. If you're talking about Carlos Hyde, 1,000-yard rusher, do we really give a shit in fantasy football? And legit, do we care about 1,000-yard rusher anymore? All I care about is does he score the tutties?
Well, he was useful. Now remember, DeAndre Hopkins is not there anymore. That's going to free up, a lot of snaps and plays, and presumably they're not going to all be pass plays. Some of those are going to get that Bill O'Brien traded for David Johnson.
No. This I'm not going to allow that. He did not trade for David Johnson, and this is where I disagree. He traded for getting rid of DeAndre Hopkins only, and I believe, I firmly believe that having David Johnson come back was strictly about bringing a name back to ease
and the contract
pressure. Not even that. I just think like he could at least say, "Well, I got back a star in David Johnson," as if to say, relieve some of the pressure because Bill O'Brien doesn't play fantasy football, so he doesn't know the pain and the suffering that David Johnson and his serial killer ways. And yes, that's right. I'm calling him a serial killer of fantasy football teams.
Yeah,
He's a serial killer of them because he's killed millions of them. So Bill O'Brien doesn't feel that. He doesn't know. He's like, I don't know. What? I don't know. He's like Littlefinger delivering Arya to Ramsay Bolton. And he's like, I didn't know Ramsay Bolton was a torturer. I thought he was a nice kid.
But don't you think he's going to at least feel obligated and to prove his point, like, hey, I was right, and force feed David Johnson the ball? Now, remember, David Johnson has proven, his show displayed upside where he could be a pass catcher. And you got to think some of the 170 targets that DeAndre Hopkins got are going to go to David Johnson because he can operate as a pass catcher. And again, I don't think, you're drafting him in the 6th round. Can he finish his like RB 18? Give you about 11 fantasy points a week. You're happy with that, right?
The answer is yes. Buy low. The risk is minimal. You can get him super late in your season long in the premium running back leagues that are best ball leagues where we need bodies at running back in the 6th round, in the late 5th, early 6th. There's no running backs left on the board. You took some stud wide receivers early. That's why you're here fishing for a starter. The answer is yes. And even if you get Carlos Hyde from 2000, is Carlos Hyde still there? I don't know. But even if you get Carlos Hyde numbers from 2019,
Duke Johnson's there. I mean, that's who's going to, use some.
But Duke Johnson has the same skill set, so that's really weird.
Right. So here's the other thing. So you're going to make a choice, and this is going to be a perfect segue into our next player that we're going to discuss. So you're going to have to face this decision on the clock in best ball. If you need a running back at this point, it's going to be David Johnson or it's going to be James Conner of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Once you give me your rundown, and then
let's go back. Now, I'd like the Terminator better than David Johnson. And again, great, another buy low candidate. Your last season, Terminator Conner was at the end of the 1st round, early 2nd round. You didn't mind him pick 9, pick 10. We've seen him have a good season with Ben Roethlisberger at the helm.
Let me give you the history on him, and then because it just to back everyone up. In 2018, the Le'Veon Bell holdout season is when James Conner was drafted. Everyone took him in the somewhere between the 9th and 5th round, depending on when you drafted, and he finished as the overall RB5. I just wrote about this recently, and then in 2019, as you just said, he was picked somewhere between 11 and 15 overall. Disappointed, finishes the RB 31.
Very bad year.
He missed 6 games, but he missed 6 games the year before too. So heading into this year, there's a lot of speculation from beat writers in Pittsburgh that the Pittsburgh Steelers will spend one of their picks. They own a pick in the 2nd round, 1 in the 3rd, and 2 in the 4th. That they'll spend one of those picks on a running back. Now, if they use, say, one of those 4th round picks, that could be more of an indictment on how they feel about the backups behind Conner. This is Conner's last year under contract, and they could be in a run him till the wheels fall off situation. If they take a running back with that 2nd round pick, then I think we have a different situation.
We also saw the emergence of Jalen Samuels. We also saw the emergence of Benny Snizzles, a.k.a. Benny Snell. So there are big question marks with the Terminator in terms of his role on the team. Is he even the starter this year? Do they go to Benny Snell? It could be. I'm not saying, is it a 3-man attack with Snell, Conner? You've got Jalen Samuel hanging out. You know that Ben Roethlisberger likes to check down to the running back. Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers offense is an offense that produces points to the running back position. Very important to note. We didn't see it as much last year with the backup quarterbacks, but
Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges.
No, but every running back under a Roethlisberger regime, his style of play, very similar to his draft classmate, Phillip Rivers, their style of play just produces points to the running back position. It's one of the reasons why you could be a little concerned about an Austin Eckler, because without Phillip Rivers there, it's been Rivers that's been consistently doing that. And the reason why Le'Veon Bell goes to the Jets, not the guy he was with the Steelers. Their offense produces points to that position, but you need the volume. So there's a lot of risk.
You made one assumption, which is the same assumption I'm making, and it's the same assumption that the market's making, but I think that we need to just at least put a little highlight on here. is Ben Roethlisberger even going to be back? Now, I know that signs are saying he will, but he got pretty banged up. He's 38, going to be 39 when the season, I think when the season gets underway. Is it possible that this ends up being the Jameis Winston spot? We spoke about it a little bit. I forget if it was on a podcast or because Jameis has come out and his agent has said he just wants a chance to revive his career. It's not about money for this season. He wants to go somewhere where he thinks he can
that'd be interesting.
Yeah. I think that if they can sign him for like $12 million, knowing that Ben, there's no certainties with him, and then make his contract incentive laden. So if he starts, he can make all the way up to like say $20 million, $25 million with different starts and performance. But I think that would be the spot for him. Now, let's just speculate for a minute. Do you like the running backs more or less with Jameis there?
And in some ways, I like them more. Not because I like the way that Jameis handles the running back position or how running backs have performed under him, but this would be my assumption in that scenario that Ben Roethlisberger still comes in and still plans to start, but he gets hurt. And now the biggest fear for me always with Steelers players is Roethlisberger's propensity to get hurt. You've heard me talk about it for years. 3 or 4 of the past years, I've said, listen, Antonio Brown, you're taking on that Roethlisberger. When Antonio Brown was the number 2 pick, I'd say, listen, Roethlisberger gets hurt quite a bit late in his career. And this was even 3-4 seasons ago. So that adds a lot of risk to any wide receiver attached to him because their backups have been so terrible. Now, let's say you have Roethlisberger, but my worst case scenario, and this ties in actually to Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yes, I was hoping you were to go there because I was going to say, if Winston's the QB, he's already proven that he could support 3 pass catchers, certainly 2, and that brings us to who? Juju.
Yeah, Juju, who is another player on the list. So I think that whole Steelers offense, Juju, elite wide receiver that killed you last year, destroyed you. Was there a player worse to have on your team than Juju Smith-Schuster for real last year? Was he the worst?
Yeah,
because we have bad memories. But maybe Odell. Like these are a lot of these guys.
I'll tell you why. Because wide receivers is general. When you draft them high, the whole idea of drafting wide receivers high is that you just put them in your lineup and you don't have to make those impossible decisions. Do I start Jamison Crowder or Devontae Parker in past years? You're not making those crazy decisions. When you draft wide receivers high in the first 2-3 rounds, you're saying, hey, I'm going to stick these guys in my lineup. I know some weeks are going to be low, some weeks are going to be high, but overall I'm going to get my points. You stuck with Juju, and it week after week, it was soul crushing. You didn't make the playoffs, obviously, and I think he finished outside of the top 50. I'm looking it up right now.
The most brutal part was he didn't even give you like 3 good weeks. It was just,
I think there was a good week in there. I'm looking at
one, but it was destruction. But that good week was the one week you finally capitulated and took him out.
Like, well, here it is.
And you take him out, and then he has the good week. You're like, oh shit, he's back. And then more destruction.
Well, here it was. And the good week was not even like great. It was 5 for 103 and a touchdown. It came after the bye, so against Miami. So there is a chance you probably played him there. I mean, but at that point, you're like, all right, the worst thing happened because then you played him, and then you were forced to play him for 3 more weeks where he got less than 8 fantasy points each week. So it actually was a bad thing because you had false hope again.
Brutalized. I don't even know how that happened. Even now, I still can't put my brain around
the QBs.
Why
the QBs were terrible.
Yeah, but some of those other wide receivers would have a decent game once in a while.
Decent.
Yeah, it was very bad. So, but now that risk is gone. Winston is a gunslinger. Roethlisberger is a proven fantasy production sort of monster. Whoever he's throwing to tends to do really well. They have a style of play that does, they throw those bombs. They have a style of play that produces fantasy points to the wide receiver position.
So let's nuts and bolts. When all of the DFSArmy and everyone watching this is drafting, Juju Smith-Schuster right now is wide receiver 14. Overall, he's going at pick. Let's see, his ADP is 40, so that is the beginning of the 4th round. I mean, that's actually counting for February. Let me do I
always like to know what are the wide receivers that I have to pick. Where are my choices at? Like it's either him or whom.
All right. So he's like, right now he's going in the Juju's going in the middle of the 4th round. And the other receivers, and I think these are no brainers. Allen Robinson's going right before him. I think you definitely take Allen Robinson.
Easily.
But right here's the few guys that are going after him, and there's some interesting names here. Okay. The 4 wide receivers by ADP are going after Juju Smith-Schuster: Courtland Sutton, Keenan Allen, Calvin Ridley, DJ Shark.
Okay. So here's my take on it. I like Juju above Ridley, above Chark, and definitely above Keenan. I'm not a Keenan Allen guy. I don't like
Cortland Sutton.
I'm going to take Cortland Sutton ahead of Juju Smith-Schuster, but that's a really close one. And actually, I want to see who winds up as the Denver quarterback before I make a final.
Assume it's Drew Lock for now.
Then I'll take Juju over him.
All right, but here's and I agreed with your list except for one name. Calvin Ridley to me is pretty interesting, and I'll tell you why. Because when you look at that wide receiving core, they lost Austin Hooper, replaced by Hayden Hurst. But Hayden Hurst is going to be fine. I'm happy to take him as my tight end in the 8th, 9th, 10th round. But Austin Hooper was a target machine. So Julio is kind of maxed out already. I'm not, there's not like, he's going to get what he's going to get. He's going to get 180 targets. He's going to catch 115 balls, and he's going to have his 1,400 yards and whatever touchdowns. Calvin Ridley, there's room to grow. And I'm not convinced Russell Gage is going to be, taking much of that target share. So I think Calvin Ridley right now in the 4th round is a little undervalued. I'm happy to take him there, but he's the guy that I would probably have a tough time when it came to him or Juju Smith-Schuster.
I mean, that's a fair point. That's absolutely a fair point. And, I could be without Hooper there. Hooper really was a 10 targets guy for his healthy games last year. The other increased possibility is that Julio Jones gets hurt. If Julio Jones does get hurt, which is very likely,
last couple of seasons though he's been fine. I mean,
that's okay, but he's another year older. He's always got the knee. He's always on the questionable. He's always questionable. You know who else reminded me of? Calvin Johnson towards the end of his career, always questionable knee issues, and then one day he's just like, I'm done with this shit. So
yeah, but
so there's a risk there with Julio. He's old.
The last 2 seasons, he's only missed 2 games.
Yes.
I mean, that's...
But nonetheless, I think the risk is there. The variance of the past 2 years aside. So I think there's risk there. I always look at what's my upside. Like, all right, let's say there's a 30% risk that Julio goes down. That elevates Calvin Ridley.
Yeah. So
either way, like he's fine, but there is that possibility of a boost. So yes, I actually am going to agree with you there. Let's move on to some more buy low candidates here. From some other teams. I'm not sure if some of these aren't going to be buy low, but Evan Ingram hurt all season last year. I've got a couple good ones. Let's rapid fire a few of these. Evan Ingram shown a lot of injury history, but he's on a high-powered offense, an exciting Giants offense. They don't play good defense. They're always in catch-up games. They need to throw a lot. They don't have a lot going on at wide receiver, really, that is commanding the football. So what do you think of Evan Ingram? Tight end position, top 6 guy.
I mean, if you go into Evan Ingram, the Giants haven't had a bigger flat tire than Evan Ingram because he has flashed amazing upside. I mean, he's literally a wide receiver that qualifies for a tight end. I mean, his body type, his speed, he's just been amazing. We haven't seen much of him with Daniel Jones at all. But the upside to be tight end 1 overall is there. I mean, it's there, but like you, I have no faith that he'll stay healthy. He's currently going right around the 5th round. You're having to decide between him and Darren Waller. I think at that point, like he, to me, still looks like the last of the tight ends I feel comfortable starting every week without question mark. I mean, the only problem with him is injury, but if he's healthy, he's going to be, a top scorer at his position. I've ended up with him in a lot of drafts, dynasty drafts, also because he's so young at age 25. And then, I'm like I said, the good thing about him, especially in like a dynasty league, or if you're doing it in a best ball league, is last year the backup, what's his name? Jaden Smith. Who's the backup tight end that flashed really well? Yeah, I'm just gonna look it up right now. I don't want to say his name.
Grab it, but I don't remember.
Not Jaden Graham. That's on the list. So it's Jaden. I think it's Jaden Smith. I want to get this right for the people. I want to get this right. But here, just Google it while I'm talking. Google it. I just want to make sure I have his name right. But anyway, he's 22 years old, the backup tight end. Looked like he was a real pass catcher. I didn't know much about him before last year, but if you can get him at the last round of your best ball, if you go early on Evan Ingram, this guy looks like he just steps in and can be competent. So if you like
Caden Smith, by the way, just to
say his name,
Caden Smith.
Okay,
Caden.
so again, admittedly, I don't know much about him.
I didn't think he was that great. I'm sorry. There's no way I'm buying Caden Smith. Maybe in a best ball league. Best ball, yes.
That's exactly what I said. I said if you want to go early on the upside of Evan Ingram, because in best ball, only first place gets paid. I mean, some of the places get some credits. That's fine. And Evan Ingram could be that difference maker for you. And if you want to go 4th round Evan Ingram because you don't want to get one of the early tight ends, you like your running backs there, Caden Smith is a guy that you could get in the very last round. No one's picking him, and you could back him up. So at least this way, you know what you always identify this geek. You always say, what's the thing that kills you in best ball? Taking zeros.
Can't take zeros.
Right. And if you get Caden Smith, it's a sound strategy that at least you won't take zeros. You'll get 8s. You'll get 7s, because when he did play, he got you 4 catches for 30 yards. That's 7 points in a PPR.
Yeah. So I wanted to be clear. Like he was not a DFS asset, for
example. No. This is a best ball discussion.
Best ball. He put up a few numbers,
but that kind of at least is a donut in the back car with Evan Ingram, who could blow out at any point.
But more so, my point with Evan Ingram is this: we're not sure right now. Natural variance is very high in NFL injuries. So right now, we're not sure if he's an injury-prone guy that just is always going to get hurt because he's just that build, that person doesn't stretch enough. I don't know why it happens to certain players, or if it's just unlucky that the last couple of years he's just been hurt a lot, right? But then he comes out and has a full season. In best ball, health is very, very important, but we also have to understand our inability to predict it and to know, like, this is a young guy. Have these injuries been fluky, or is it just what to expect? We saw with like Tyler Eifert, the fact he pretty much pulled off a full season, although they uninjured. But before that, it was a pretty comfortable assumption that if you drafted this guy, he was getting hurt. You just did it so many years in a row. Evan Ingram's not quite there. He's only a couple of years into his career, so he could turn it around. He could turn around and have a good full season. If he played a full year out, all right, let me say that. If he had done the 2 injury seasons and then he played a full year out, good. We would have forgotten about the injury season. We'd just be like, yeah, this is a top 5 guy. But because of this,
he's still being drafted. All right, so he can. So, but listen, okay, I want to circle back to Caden Smith one last time, and then I'll leave it alone. Okay, as a backup, you can get in the last round. In the final 6 games of the season, Geek, here was his fantasy. He had 4 good games and 2 bad games. Okay, so remember, a tight end, any tight end can. So here's his PPR fantasy points from week 12 to 17. 12, 13, 2, 7, 21, 17. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Good games are at the end. Yeah, you're right. A couple of very good games at the end.
Right, and he was 22 years old. Yeah. What I'm saying is that if you go for Evan Ingram and you're literally you don't know who the hell to take in the last round anyway, that might be a good backup.
Very strong, and again, if you can guarantee yourself points from the tight end position, so I totally am on board with it. Okay. Like I said, you can't take zeros, and in my few years of playing best ball leagues, I've had 3 years of playing them. The number one position that you're getting zeros from is tight end. And a lot of time now, of course, Hunter Henry has been a big contributor to that.
Yeah, but, you want to talk about him?
No. Yeah, well, no, I don't even want to talk about because I don't think he's a buy low. So I want to stick to the buy low, but he was a big contributor to a lot of zeros the last couple of years.
Yeah.
But like I've been getting zeros from the tight end position. Those are the teams that don't make it. So if you can have a tight end with a legitimate backup that
how often can you handcuff these guys? Right, Hunter Henry. If you take Hunter Henry, there's no handcuff. You're just hoping that your second tight end holds the.
Yes, that's what it is. Like Virgil Green back in the he was doing shit. So all right, let's talk about another tight end since we're on this category and we're moving, we're shaking, we're going fast and furious through the buy low candidates. How about your boy, not my boy, your boy, OJ Orenthal James Howard. Now. Last year, if you watch the Bowl Calls podcast, my bowl call was, don't draft that motherfucker. Everybody's speculating that he's going to be good when he's been shit every single season so far, right? But somehow, just off of pure speculation, he in ADP, he rose up to like TE4 or something. I was like, you guys draft him, right? I didn't have any shares. He went on and did exactly what he's done every single season of his career, which is average 3 or 4 catches a game. And do nothing. And yet everybody loves this guy. I assume it's his draft capital. I assume he was drafted high Maybe he's got talent, or let me put talent. He's drafted high. I don't give a fuck about that. He hasn't done shit. Now you can get him still, outside of TE1 ratio. Now Tampa has a new regime in place. Now the speculation is beginning. Well, I didn't use him right. A new quarterback. What should we do with OJ?
All right. So, all right. You said a lot. So you want to talk about our guy, Otarius.
Like I said, talent. I needed to quotation because I don't give a fuck if he's got talent. Well, if he doesn't produce, he doesn't produce. I don't care.
Okay. You want to talk about our guy, Otarius Jabari? That's OJ. That's his name. No, his name is Otarius Jabari Howard. That is the OJ, okay? So the case for OJ Howard leading into last season. So, okay, let's go back a year ago, just so we're right now we're going to pretend, even though it's April of 2020, we're just going to take a trip back to April of 2019. OJ Howard led all tight ends in yards per catch and yards per target.
Oh, no.
Hold on. Hold on. Let me say it, and then you can. It's short. You can led all tight ends in yards per catch and yards per target over the previous 2 seasons. Okay, we were thinking that he was in for a big volume boost with Adam Humphries and Deshaun Jackson leaving, who basically had 180 targets. Okay, the easiest way to spot a breakout player is to find a talented guy with those exact metrics. So the case for OJ Howard makes sense. Now, what we didn't factor in was that, like you pointed out, Jameis Winston had more of a connection with Brate, and that simply Bruce Arians, I guess it held true, has never really featured the tight end, which really makes for an interesting question this season with Tom Brady, who, as we know, always had featured the tight end, with going back to Ben Watson and what's his name, Aaron Hernandez, and obviously Gronk. So the price is cheap. Is he a true buy low? Now, don't have take lock on this meeting. I know you hate OJ Howard, but at his 11th round price, 12th round price, if you're punting tight end early, you could end up with a top tight end potentially.
Yeah, I mean, this is a more reasonable location. And that's why this is the buy low show. I wanted to do my rip on OJ Howard to start and just do my little dance of satisfaction for.
You were right last year. You were absolutely right.
Yeah,
and I was
just don't do it, right? Yeah, but your reasoning was for being into him was right. I just don't like the speculation that high up. I'll speculate about a guy in the 11th round that might wind up being a good play, but I don't want to take a guy as a speculative play when I know that there are actual good players that we know will produce in the same area. Now, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? What drives fantasy production? Is it the coach and the offense that's designed,
system or talent, right?
Quarterback? And he says, I like the tight end position. I like to throw to my tight ends. Bruce Arians says, I don't like people throwing to tight ends. I got fucking Mike Evans over here. I got Godwin. You don't need to throw to anybody else. We have these 2 guys. That's all we do. We throw it to these 2. So, what wins? I think the offense generally wins, but we don't know if the offense will be retailored, and we don't even care for an 11th round pick. The 3 or 4 targets a game is fine. And with Tom Brady under center, he is a much better red zone quarterback than what Jameis Winston ever was or will be. Yeah. And that's where the tight end position comes the most into play. We want him to catch touchdowns. I do believe that there's a decent is Cameron Brate back with the team? Because
Cameron Brate is back with the team. And I think, and again, he is free in drafts. When I say free, I don't mean like, some people say, in the 14th round he's free. No, like literally you could take him after the draft is over. He is that free.
It's so free you could take him after your best ball draft is over. They'll allow
it. Reopen it. Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, and you know what? He could be the better tight end of the 2. I'm not ready to say that I'm all in on OJ Howard. I love the price. I'll take the risk. He's the young, but Cameron Brate is going to be there, and you never know. Brady, so the other thing I'm going to talk about, and I kind of joked about this, when Brady wears number 12, as everybody knows, TB12. Chris Godwin has been wearing number 12. So the question was on, in social media was, how much is Brady going to have to pay Godwin to get the number 12? Godwin obviously gave it to him, but I was kind of joking when I said it, but do you think that gesture is maybe one seed of the trust that starts between those guys, the respect. And as we know, Brady is about trust and respect, and that's when he'll feed you the ball. If he doesn't trust you, he's not throwing you the football.
I think it was the right move by Howard to do it. By Godwin to do it.
Of course it was. The GOAT comes on your team, you give up that number. But what I'm saying is he didn't have to. I know many players that probably wouldn't. And do you think that we could be looking at like a 125 reception season? Like, are you more in on Godwin now, or are you still letting him fall to the end of the second round?
I need to let the whole thing simmer, because I have this competing thought process of Tom Brady not having been a dynamic fantasy points producing quarterback.
But Edelman was
couple years.
Edelman was a top 12.
Edelman has been a great wide receiver. Godwin plays a similar kind of a role to what Edelman does. I do like Godwin, so I think he's so much. I think that Brady is so much more of an efficient quarterback than what Winston is, that just the efficiency alone should make up for what I think will be a significant drop in volume.
Well, let me ask you this. You said you like Godwin. He's wide receiver 6 right now. Him or Julio Jones? Who are you taking? You just said that Julio gets hurt.
Godwin over Julio Jones.
You're okay. All right. Tyreek
Hill. I love Julio too. I mean, it's a tough call.
Of course. All right. How about this one? DJ Moore with Teddy Bridgewater as the QB, or Chris Godwin? That one should be a little easier for you.
Fuck, man. It's not that easy, but I'm going to go Godwin over DJ Moore.
Okay. And then the last one I'm going to ask you is Tyreek Hill or Chris Godwin?
Yeah, it's Reek for me.
Okay. Fair enough.
I'm going to go Godwin over Moore, but I'm going to go Reek over him. And then the decision with Jones, I like Godwin a little bit better than Mike Evans, if that's fair.
Oh no, that's a little bit. That's not only fair. That's the consensus right now. Chris Godwin goes ahead of Mike Evans in drafts right now.
Yeah, not like crazy, but I definitely like a little bit more. All right, let me jump on some other names here that I think are interesting buy low candidates. This is one I'm really interested in. Kerryon Johnson, and I'm not sure I'm going to agree with you on this one, so I want to see where this goes. Kerryon, very popular pick last year, second rounder.
You want me to just start with Kerryon Johnson?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna, he was a second rounder last year.
So all right, so Kerryon Johnson,
where's he going now?
So let me start. Kerryon Johnson is going to be going to his third year. He's gotten hurt in the first 2 years, but we both saw what we saw. He looks like he glides. Looks like a great player. But going back to Kerryon Johnson, the lead up to the draft, even at the combine, he said publicly that he doesn't see himself as a workhorse back. He sees himself. This is him. Usually the players go, "Oh, I could do it all. I'm the workhorse. Wherever they need me, I got this." Kerryon Johnson said in his interviews publicly that he sees himself more as a complementary piece to a committee. And all right, fine. Nobody took his word at that, but obviously that is going to, with his durability issues, that is probably the case. But fine, that works for me. He's going to be a pass catching running back, and if they can find a hammer to go with him, right now they have Bo Scarborough as playing the LeGarrette Blunt role, which we don't know. The jury's out. He's only in his first couple of years. But Kerryon Johnson in best ball is going in around the 6th round. I think that's a nice spot for him. Now, if he's your RB3 on your team, I think that's fair, because last year disappointed, was going as early as the late 2nd round. I think this is a good spot. He's still young, and if he comes back from his injury and Matt Stafford is back, I'm happy to take him there. I haven't gotten too much of him, except in a dynasty league. He fell a little bit to me. People are really scared off, but he's a guy that he fits into this category perfectly, Geek. He is flashed, and he's also had 2 years in a row of injury. What say you on Kerryon? Do you like him enough to buy him in the 6th round?
All right. Well, let me just give the general opinion on the player first, because I think it's important to distinguish between a best ball 6th rounder and like somebody I'd taken my season long.
But he's going to stay in the 6th round in season long too. This is
I am not touching this guy in the 6th round of a season long league. This guy will murder your lineups. If you have to start Kerryon Johnson weekly, even in the flex, you are in trouble. That is not a guy you want. Why? Because he's going to get all of the run in the worst part of the field. The Lions do not throw to running backs at a level that is enough to produce fantasy point goodness from the PPR perspective. And so you're going to get misery, because they're going to pull this guy out anytime you're in the red zone. He's not going to sniff He's not going to sniff the end zone.
What do you think his under over on touchdowns is?
Catching, I'm going to say 3.
Right. So 3.5. You think so?
Is it 3.5? You have the number?
Well, I'm talking about like you wouldn't say 3 exactly. Like the under over would be 3.5.
Oh, I thought you had the Vegas.
Oh no, I'll pull it up if you want. I'll pull it up.
Like it's probably too early for props. I don't know that exists.
No, I have a site that will give you the estimated props.
Okay, so like an estimated prop, but I'm going to say like 3 touchdowns for this guy. So 3.5, right? That is not enough. That's okay for your best ball team. And again, we're trying to avoid zeros, so that's fine. But I don't like this place. My preference when I'm drafting my best ball league is I've already filled up my running back spots, at least 3, ideally 4 by the 6th round, but definitely 3. And this isn't where I want to go. I want to go wide receivers here in my best ball league. So this is a guy who will end up on none of my teams for this reason. I can't deal with guys who don't score touchdowns.
All right.
I don't like him. I don't like a guy who says I can only be a timeshare back. My whole goal is players who want to play.
All right. Well, here's the projection on him. So Vegas has him at you're gonna hammer the under on this. So Vegas is projecting him right now at 7 rushing touchdowns.
That's ridiculous.
And 1 receiving. I mean, again, this is not an official number that's on the board. This is a projection site based on where they think things are going to be. And this is up to date, by the way. And just to let you know,
if I could bet the under on that all day.
You can bet the under.
Is that bettable right now?
I mean, we'd have to check with our friends over at DFSArmy, but
we'll check it out. But that's an under I would hammer the shit out.
Here's the projection on him just for the year. It's 205 carries, 830 yards, 7 touchdowns, 30 catches, 250 yards, 1 touchdown. That's his projection.
I don't mind the projection outside of the 7 touchdowns. I don't see how he a guy who's not going to touch the football in the between the 20 and the goal line is going to have that. They have shown that they will religiously put in, even when it was LeGarrette, the ghost of LeGarrette Blount, who couldn't even move anymore.
Yeah,
they would throw him in there. They will have some name, Zach Zenner, somebody who you never heard of, smashing Benny Snell, not Benny Snell. Who was the guy last year that they had?
Bo Scarborough.
Yeah, Bo Scarborough. They'll have some fat, slow, big dude that they bring in. He won't score either, but that's what they're going to try to do. All right, let's talk. Let's keep moving here. There are a lot of names.
Well, do you want to let's do 1 or 2 more, and then we can call it a show, and then come back and maybe hit some other. We'll do as many as you want, but
we can hammer these out, man. There's we'll push faster through a few of these other names I've got written down here.
Go ahead.
Joe Mixon. I don't think he's a buy low candidate, but more of a guy who is bouncing off of what I think was a disappointing season, but he's now pretty much ranked higher than he was last year. So he's more of a buy high, but I've got Joe Mixon as a potential. I don't, like I said, I don't see it as a buy low because
right. And I think that's right. Because when I put him on the list, it's okay. This is the story with Joe Mixon. So you drafted Joe Mixon last year, probably in the early 2nd round. Maybe you got him in the late 2nd round by the time August rolled around, and you didn't make the playoffs. It didn't work out. This has been well documented. I've sent this out.
He's basically a lineup murderer that you want to consider going back to.
But they're getting Jonah Williams back as their 1st round pick last year. He didn't play at all. He's a big, giant tackle. Presumably, Joe Burrow is going to be an upgraded QB. The guy looks pro ready. All right. He's a 24-year-old rookie. He's going to be pro ready. And, in the last 4 games of the season, I mean, Joe Mixon has performed despite all the conditions being horrible. I think AJ Green coming back on a 1-year deal helps Joe Mixon, opens up the field a little bit. And like I said, Joe Mixon got you about 17, 18 fantasy points per game down the stretch last year after week 13. So that's what we like to see. Guys that we had high expectations for, situations crumbled around them, and at the last month of the season, they were able to produce. That's how you found George Kittle. That's how you found Joe. And that's the situation with Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon, a lot of people are going to be down on him. I think in your home league, he probably won't even go in the 1st round. In best ball leagues, he is, because people will go running back crazy. So I'm buying Joe Mixon at the at his price, which is somewhere between pick 7, 8, and the early 2nd round. But I mean, he's young, he's healthy, and his situation's improving.
Let me tell you, you've been a buyer of Joe Mixon every season. You're a Joe Mixon truther, and it always doesn't work.
That's not true.
I mean, it really hasn't worked.
Didn't work last year.
Definitely didn't work last year. First round pick or top of the bottom of the first, top of the second. He's back in the same spot. I'm taking Kenyon Drake ahead of Joe Mixon, and therefore I will not wind up with any Joe Mixon shares. Not because I don't mind the guy. I kind of don't mind him. I think he'll be fine. But there are guys who, where he's going, he's currently projected as RB8, right in the range of Aaron Jones, Derrick Henry. I like Austin Eckler better than those guys. I like Kenyon Drake better than those guys. So I can just tell you that for me, he won't wind up on my team because where he is, I relative to who I like a little bit more. But that being said, I do agree with you. I think the situation is improving in Cincinnati. My biggest concern with Cincinnati was always this refuse to commit to him. You know, when they give him the ball, he does great. But
would you agree with this? Would you agree with this? That he has top 2 overall RB1 upside. Like he could literally finish as one of the top 2 best fantasy backs. Like he has it in his range of outcomes.
I can't go that high. You'd need massive injuries.
No, I don't think with injury. I think just with performance.
He's going to be better. You know, you could even talk about him versus Christian McCaffrey. No,
I said top 2. I didn't say top 1 overall.
So we eliminated 1. So you're saying he could get all the way to number 2.
Right. Okay. So when you take someone like Austin Eckler, right, and who I love, I've documented it, you're not thinking he's going to be a top 3 back, even though he finished pretty damn close to it last year, right? You're thinking you're hoping Austin Eckler finishes in the top 6 or 7 running backs. Like you don't expect it RB1 overall. I think Joe Mixon, again, you've already pointed out that I might be overly emotionally invested in him, but I think he has it in him. I think he's still young. Was he 23 years old? That offense is improving, everything, and he's performed despite all the conditions caving in on him. Now that the conditions will be presumably better, I like Joe Mixon. I'm back in. Move on.
I mean, that's fair. I like Joe Mixon as well, and I think you could make arguments between him and, let's say, like even some other guys who are higher up there, but certainly like I like him over a Nick Chubb, you know, a Josh Jacobs. You know, there are definitely areas there I can make an argument even for.
We're not that far off then.
It's not crazy. I just like some other guys a little bit better, and I have a hard time going and taking a guy in the first round who has disappointed year after year. Yep. Let me throw another name at you, and this guy I kind of like, Adam Thielen. There's no Stephon Diggs over there. He killed your teams the last couple of years, both with injuries and with just not being as productive as he's been in the past, less volume. But we've seen what happens when Adam Thielen is the only guy out there for the Vikings. The Vikings are a run-heavy offense. We know this. They are, I'm going to call them San Francisco light. If you give them the chance to lean on the run, they're going to do it. Their pass catchers aren't going to do great, but there's usually room for one guy to do well every single game, even when the running back position dominates. And, you know, that's been Diggs or Thielen or sometimes neither. Now Diggs is gone.
Yep.
No more Diggs.
So I think you point out something really interesting, is that last year Adam Thielen was a 2nd-round pick. This year you're getting him in the late 3rd, sometimes early 4th, but he'll settle in as an early 3rd. Like you're going to be deciding between Odell Beckham and Adam Thielen when it's all over, and everything's set up for him. I mean, he's literally the only game in town. And the Minnesota Vikings recently, to replace him, signed Tajay Sharp as their 2nd wide receiver. I mean,
that's what you want. They're probably going to draft somebody. But that's what you want.
And they will. But here again, I think you hit on it. Like Adam Thielen is going to be the best wide receiver value in fantasy football. And I'm glad you pointed that out, because people aren't going to want him. Like he's worthy.
Say it. You ever like, I want to keep it for myself. So
but
in the 4th round of my best
you made a decision in 2015 that you were going to become an analyst, and you forego keeping those secrets to yourself. You just forego it.
Before that, just no one was watching.
Well, that's my point. When DFSArmy exploded onto the scene and everyone started paying attention to what you were saying 5 years ago, that's when you had to make that decision. Am I going to be a player or an analyst?
But no, I love Adam Thielen this season.
No, it's a great one.
The drop is crazy. Why? You know, he's shown what he can do. When the volume is there, he's produced. I'm not a fan of the Vikings where I get to be like, I hate Kirk Cousins. I don't care about that fandom bullshit. All I care about is volume, opportunity, and cost. And I'm getting it for cheap. The volume is going to be there. The cost is great. So
you ready for this? Ready for this? I'll give you some Adam Thielen stuff that'll back up your point right here. His target projection is 120 targets. I think that's low. All right. Mike Clay of ESPN, who has been really good with projections, has him as his wide receiver 8 overall, ahead of Galladay, DJ Moore, Amari Cooper.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So, like I said, smart people like yourself, like I think, again, Mike Clay, and, they're on it early. So, this is why we do early best ball, so we can get some of that value, because by the time your home league friends start paying attention and they start looking up ESPN projections, and they'll look up Matthew Berry's, they'll look up all the, but Mike Clay is still a little bit under the radar, even at ESPN. Like, he agrees with what you're saying, and I know you haven't done a deep dive in it yet. So your intuition is absolutely correct here. And I agree with it. I still think he'll be a value.
That's the guy, when you're doing an early best ball draft, that's one of those guys that, like, your heart should, as it's getting like around where his ADP is, your heart should be pounding, because you're like, I need to get him. You're going to take him a little ahead of his ADP just because other people are going to know about it. So he's one of those spots for me when I'm drafting where my heart starts pounding a little bit, knowing I'm still probably, 12 or 15 picks ahead of where he might normally be going.
Matter.
But I want to make sure I get him on my team. And, then if you have like that 11 or 10th pick, and should I take the chance of these 4, that you're going to be making decisions, but that's one of those guys.
Well, here you go. I'll set you up with one. Amari Cooper or Adam Thielen?
I'm going to take Cooper because I believe I can get Thielen in the next turn.
All right.
But
just in a vacuum,
like in the draft, I'm going to take Cooper there because I know I can't get him, but I think I might be able to get Thielen at a bargain.
Let's say you're in a draft with like really sharp experts. You're in like with some of the top names, including like Mike Clay, who had said, and so there's no value going to slip. Okay, you're not playing against a bunch of just guys. You're playing against sharp guys, and you're in the middle of the third round. You have your 2 running backs, and it's time to take your first receiver. You're still going to go Cooper over Thielen?
I am, but
okay, that's fair. That's fair.
But it's right there. But just that you can ask that question, it's such a fair question. And right after Cooper, these other names are where I really want to take Thielen first, like Cortland Sutton going ahead of him.
How about Odell Beckham? That's
Odell Beckham. I'm taking Thielen over Odell Beckham. I'm taking Thielen over Sutton. I'm taking Thielen, hell yeah, over Keenan Allen, who's another guy we need to talk about. So Keenan Allen.
All right, this will be the last guy. This will be the last guy.
Well, let me see if we have any other really important ones before we get to him. Yeah, all right. So let's end with him because that is. I mean, we did talk about Will Fuller, but I don't know if that even falls in this category.
Oh, it does. All right, we'll do 2 more. We'll do 2 more.
I want to bring up Will Fuller as well, but let's talk about Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen's just like, he's for me a guy drop for good reason. No. Stop with the Keenan Allen. He was only good when you don't even need to. I'm going to let you weigh in, but I have a rant on this guy. So Keenan Allen, fucking guy, his superpower, he's a good route runner. He's like a Julian Edelman. His superpower is his volume. He's never been a big play guy. He's never been a guy that produces high yak. He's just a guy who gets 14 targets, 11 receptions, like volume. Now, the issue is twofold. Number one, Rivers is gone, and you can't rely on whoever comes in to replace him as being sort of.
Could be a rookie. I mean, right now it's set to be Tyrod Taylor, but it could end up being a rookie.
You give me Tyrod Taylor at the helm, I don't want anything to do with any wide receiver on that team. That is death to wide receivers. People don't forget. He's not good, and he can't complete passes. But they'll have a rookie come in. Keenan Allen, dead to me. He needs volume. There are other weapons on the team now. There's Hunter Henry. There's Mike Williams. There's too many weapons for him to command 14 targets, 16 targets a game. He doesn't have a quarterback to do it. Do not touch Keenan Allen.
Well, here you go.
I don't care how far this is the don't buy low guy. Don't buy low.
This is the avoid guy. But
low.
Where do you think he's going in drafts right now? Like, without looking it up, like, where do you think he's going?
I'm assuming he is maybe in the top of WR2. So I'm going to say wide receiver 13 or 14 in drafts.
Okay, so he's, you know what? Take a guess what round he's going in.
It's really tough for me to make that guess because I haven't done enough best balls to remember.
All right.
Let's say round 5 or 4 or 5.
Yeah, right. He's going very early round 4. So he's solidly out of the top 36. So he's out of round 3. He's going 39th overall. And I'm about to tell you. So he's going wide receiver 17. He's going. The guys that are going ahead of him are Allen Robinson, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Cortland Sutton. Now, more importantly, here's the guys that are going after him, and we already agreed that Calvin Ridley should be above him. Okay. Now, here's to your point. DJ Shark, Adam Thielen, Diggs, and DK Metcalf are going after him.
Every one of those guys I take above Keenan Allen. I'll throw some other names at you. Devontae Parker, I want him more. Cooper Kupp, I like him better.
Yeah, Cooper Kupp's going ahead of him. Devontae Parker is falling. He's actually seen his ADP fall about a round and a half, and I think, again, that's just a market correction that he was going a little too high. He was going like on the 3-4 turn early on, and
crazy.
Yeah.
But I mean, with it, as long as Fitzpatrick is, we don't know that will happen.
Oh my God.
We don't know if Fitzpatrick's going to be the quarterback, but if he is, I definitely like Devontae Parker a bit. Calvin Ridley, Robert Woods. There are a lot of names that I want almost everybody. I have not had a share of Keenan Allen on any of my teams the last few years. This will not change. This is a sell low. Sell, don't buy. Now, final guy. And you're in agreement. So we don't have to have an argument about it. You're in agreement on Keenan Allen.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, he was, even in his heyday, I never liked him as a couple of years. I was wrong, but he was never a guy that I wanted to draft because he didn't score tutties. He did, just, again, I got it wrong a couple of years, but I'm not going back there.
No, don't take him now. Don't buy
if in the sixth round, sure. Why not? My wide receiver 3, I'm in.
It's like if you didn't ride, the stock all the way up and now you start buying it and it's the beginning of the downturn. You don't want to do that. All right. Final player, Big Willie style. Will Fuller, the only game in town for the Texans. The only game. There's no one else. They don't have any other wide receivers on the roster.
They do.
One guy.
They got some guys. Some guys.
No, they're not real. Only Will Fuller, and he gets hurt usually after 2 or 3 games. He has about, so his history has been he can play about 2-3 games, and then he's done. At that point, after that, it's going to be Deshaun Watson just like throwing it to himself. He's going to catch it himself. They have no wide receivers. Gucci, my ass.
All right, but they do. Kenny Stills is capable. He's flashed some upside. Again, he's probably better off as a team's wide receiver 3 than as a 2, but he's capable. And you're going to laugh, but he deserves consideration. Is that they just signed Randall Cobb and they gave him real money. So
I don't know what's worse, trading away DeAndre Hopkins or paying Randall Cobb.
Both.
What is going on for the Texans? All right. How much time do you have that? 3 minutes.
Yeah.
You go to rant. Bill O'Brien. What the fuck is wrong with this guy? I want to rant more on Bill O'Brien, except he keeps making the playoffs. So it's like,
good coach, bad GM.
Like, what is happening over there? Yeah, is he good coach? Terrible GM. What if I'm a Texans fan? I'm losing my mind. Why can't you get me a proper running back? Well, you got Lamar fucking Miller. Then you bring in all these. Now you're trading away our best player because what? He was insubordinate. Like, I don't understand what the hell's going on. Why are you screwing over Deshaun Watson? He's a great quarterback. You're screwing him. There's no wide receivers over here. Will Fuller gets hurt after week 3. I know. I've got him on multiple dynasty teams, and I'm not that excited about it. Bill O'Brien. Jeez, what the hell's wrong with you? Fucking bring in David Johnson. The guy can't run. He hurt his arm and he can't run. How does a hand injury translate into a guy who can't run anymore? You've had 2 years to rest your freaking legs. All right, rant off.
Yeah, I mean, it's not hard to dunk on Bill O'Brien right now. So, no arguments from me. But like I said, getting back to the main point of the conversation was Will Fuller. At his price, I'm in. It's creeping into the 6th round still. I mean, you're talking about like week winning ability, and even if you get it 4 times in the whole season, that's enough at the price. In season long, it's going to be a little tougher to trust him, but if he's your wide receiver 3. In season long, he falls to like the 8th round or like 9th round in super flex. I mean, I love it because for my wide receiver 3, some people play the strategy. Hey, I just want Cole Beasley to get me my 8-9 points a week. I'm cool with that. That's not how I
was putting up 25.
You know what I'm saying? That type of receiver.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
They want their 9-12 points every week from their wide receiver 3, and they're happy. 8 points. How I play my wide receiver 3 is I want the guy to win me the week, or and I understand he's going to get 0 sometimes. Like, I love Deshaun Jackson as my wide receiver 3. Peak Deshaun Jackson. I love having guys like Will Fuller in my wide receiver 3 because they crush everyone's soul. They'll give me 4 wins that I shouldn't have gotten.
Their projection is never great too. Your opponent's always like, oh, he's got Will Fuller, he's got that 11. It's like that
right, and it means nothing, that 11, because it's either 2 or it's a 42.
Now, I have a medical question. If you get hammies injured all the time, can you just like change your stretching regime?
Yeah, some guys
and figure that shit out. Like, how could a player always have a bad hammy? At some point, what are you doing that is causing you to not be able to have a hamstring that holds up?
You know what it is?
Exercise routine. What the fuck is going on?
No, it's usually you'll laugh because you know where this is coming from, but it's what they're eating.
Yeah,
it's how they're hydrating. It's how they're sleeping.
That's what I'm saying. These are correctable things. How, as a player, do you not have a full-time person up your ass, nutritionist, trainer? One of these guys that comes in and says, "No, this is the routine. We're going to strengthen up those hammies so you can make it through a season." And send freaking Jillian Roberts over there to kick this guy's ass. Now, Jillian Roberts was like the worst name. That's how bad. TB12 needs to send his guy over to Will Fuller. All right, who's Tom Brady's guy? That dude who worked with the TB12 guy.
I wonder if he'll be on the sideline of.
He will be. They've already told him that he could run the team. He's going to be the head trainer. Like, Tom Brady's coming in and running shit. TB12 motherfuckers. So they need to get Will Fuller some TB12 thing going on so that they could fix up that hamstring issue and he could play a season, because it's not like he has a bad knee. I'm much more concerned about a bad knee, arthritis, a bad shoulder for a quarterback. Hamstrings that are always hurt. Like, dude, you got to figure out a way to stretch it out. You got to figure it out.
No arguments there, my friend. And I think we cover. This was a really important podcast because this just shows that you can, you're going to pick your team, how you're going to pick it, but there really are some interesting values early on that are going to dry up. And I think that these players that we've identified, some of them good, some of them bad, even including guys that no one in your league wants, like David Johnson, James Conner, are going to be useful assets given their draft costs right now. So, love talking to you, man. Love that we covered this. We can, we'll be back again soon. Do what you do best. Wrap it up. Tell them what's going on at DFSArmy quickly, and we'll call it a podcast.
That's right. So good stuff. I love these. I love talking fantasy football. It makes me feel normal. Like I just want to say this conversation today, we're in a really weird time. We're all quarantined. We're in our house. It's just weird. We're not getting the fantasy fix that we normally do. This discussion makes me feel normal, and I hope that it just brings back like happy memories for me of fantasy football and crushing my friends' dreams, right?
A little bit of normalcy.
So a little bit of normalcy. So I hope that everybody appreciates that. And so stick around. We'll be back each week. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe, make sure you do that. That way you'll get a notification when we go live with these. Like and subscribe, wherever you're listening, podcast, Podbean, whatever.
Do you mind if I just tell people, follow my Twitter as well? I'm putting some interesting content on Twitter, my rankings that we're starting to put out for DFSArmy. So if you don't mind, it's at Alan Sesowsky, AlanSesowsky. It's in the podcast description. Just go over to Twitter, give me a follow. I don't promote it too much because I want to keep a nice tight group. But if we can get some of the DFSArmy guys over there, I'm really going to start pumping out some of these rankings. So come over, give me a follow. And if you don't follow Kevin the Geek, he's at F Football Geek. That's 2 Fs, Football Geek. And he too is doing all this crazy stuff with the esports and all that stuff. So
we'll get into obviously follow us on Twitter. In DFSArmy right now, what we're doing, aside from our focus on best ball leagues, Sez is going to be putting out full blast best ball rankings here.
Mm-hmm.
We're in March, like it's super early.
We're in April.
Yeah, draft is coming soon. We're in April. That's right. Draft is coming soon. At that point, after that, we'll have full blast best ball rankings. We'll have season long rankings, dynasty rankings, all that good season long content. And of course, if you're looking for your DFS fix, jump into DFSArmy. It is still a good time to jump in because we're covering esports now. We've got League of Legends going. We've got CSGO going. We've got Rocket League going. There are Sims going on. So we're still able to play. We're still able to get our fix. I don't want to go crazy betting on kids playing video games. But at the same time, there are big contests going. And we have the best team. We put together an incredible content team of people who legitimately love esports. Watch it regular, not people who are just like, I need my fix. I'm going to like try to figure this shit out. I'm talking about people who have been playing DFS, esports, League of Legends. Advantage DFS is one of our guys. Taco, one of our guys. These guys were top players, and they're awesome. They really love this stuff. So go to DFSArmy.com. Check it all out. A lot of the content's free. We have our optimizer going for League of Legends right now. It's really, really sweet. Been crushing it. Best optimizer in the business. So get in there, check it out. And of course, we will be back. Another Bold Calls podcast, probably next week or so. Maybe a focus on the actual NFL draft coming up. We'll do some draft.
You want me to go over my? Do you want me to go over my? On the next one, we can go over my pre-draft top 24 if you want.
Yeah, and we're putting that contest together too. We've got a contest coming, a little tournament for DFS Army members, kind of based around the NFL draft. So stay tuned for more info on that. We're also looking at potentially adding some new best ball partners that can set up some promotional contests for our listeners and viewers to do best ball leagues. So again, stay tuned for that next time. Meanwhile, for Sez, Season Long Sez, for myself, Kevin Allen, aka The Geek. Till next time, that's your Bulk Call podcast.
All right, brother. Bye-bye.